Alright, bro. You seen the title. You seen the thumbnail. I'm so fucking excited.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
You know, for a game that at the time of my first playthrough had me debating how I feel about it going forward, I was more hyped to see what actually happened in this story at the first of every month than I was to graduate high school. I've been called a lot of weird ass names like in this game, but if my last video about Coffin got 7k views, I can't be alone on this shit. Last time we were talking about this crazy ass sibling story about a year ago, Ashley and Andrew, the loveliest couple, siblings, were at each other's necks in one of the two routes you could take. One broke the internet, which means Twitter, for about a good month for its rather interesting implications, and the other breaking me. Now, if you don't remember from the last video, or you just don't want to bring yourself to watch it, Decay is one of two main routes from episode 2, and goes deep into answering questions we've had before. It expands on every character involved and relevant to the story, and has storylines I knew we'd get back to a year ago. I'm sure we'll find out more about the surgeon character, but I've been trying not to bring him up, mostly because we know so little about him. I fucking knew it! If episode 2 was mostly about Ashley, then I'd personally say that this chapter is definitely focused more on Andrew. How he came to be, who he is, experiences with Ashley, and most importantly, his own mask slipping. The story of Andy and Leyley is far from over, and honestly, I'm rooting for this shit. It gets me views. The chapter starts with us playing as a grime soul in the realm between, and not as our favorite sibling fuckers. We stand before the big ass demon from episode 2 that we couldn't understand. However, it asks us about a ritual we took part in which then sparks its interest in us. After absolutely destroying a puzzle, we now arrive at an actual puzzle section taking place on a platform and on top of buildings, with the main platform showing a photo of ghosts with the colors of, okay, who the fuck else is there? There are only like 5 colors in this game. Solving the puzzle though, that I'm pretty sure a good chunk of the community got stuck on when this chapter came out. The ghosts that represent the Graves family come together to eat, and we have to determine a specific seating arrangement so that dinner is peaceful. However, none of that shit really matters. We've deceived and lied to the entity as to not show why we are grime in nature. We learn later that soul designation in this universe is largely influenced by how the soul or person viewed themselves, and with that, the next scene makes sense.
You must be quite the liar to have such an instinct intact in your current state. You want to show me what lies underneath this facade. It says, the last thing you want is for the big scary being to see anything. You want to escape, but there's nowhere to run. You think about the things that hurt. You try not to, but you can't help it. Something makes you recall memories and thoughts you didn't know you had.
We go to another puzzle, and this time it's starting to become a little clearer on who we might be playing as. Oh my fucking god, you just had to do construction as I'm recording. Opening these doors on the left showed dialogue, most likely coming from Mrs. Graves talking to Andrew, berating him, most likely about all his shortcomings, and each door increases in hostility, eventually using all the knowledge gained to write on the board how to
be a walking disappointment.
We talk to the entity once more, not before he gives us vegetables? I don't know, man. But along with this, he also makes a friend out of the grime soul, whether or not he likes it. The first we see of any actual characters is Andy, specifically before the death of Nina, and we see that his work in school has finally paid off. He's happy not only because of the results, but also the possibility of moving far away just motivates him. We follow him through the day, and somehow this nigga has friends? The mood of everyone at the table is immediately ruined as they see Ashley walking towards them like Felicia and Friday. Ashley obviously causes a scene by not only making his friends leave, but also leaving the principal's office after she did some stupid shit like, I don't know, destroying a bathroom. Oh, do you guys remember Devious Licks? I feel old as shit, man. Jokes aside, Ashley called her teacher a cunt, and even while getting dragged away goes off.
Good afternoon, parents. Good afternoon, boys and girls. Shut the fuck up.
Hey! Not nice.
No, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
You need to leave? No, bitch.
Okay.
There's not much else in the lunchroom except that we see Julia and Nina right after. We also see Andrew's attempt of dumping Ashley off on the two because she quite literally just has no friends. Going in the hallway though to give Ashley back her backpack, she asks Andrew if he wants to skip with her right in front of her teacher. But unfortunately for Ashley, there's no going anywhere. Her ass is cooked. She wants Andrew to wait for her after detention and everything, but instead of doing that, we go straight back home. As soon as Andrew gets home though, we see that Mrs. Graves is being more deadbeat than Gone's dad by dropping the kids off at their grandparents' house, and the only thing stopping them is Ashley being at detention. What's funny is how similar Ashley is to her mother, despite both of them hating each other. They can at least agree on hating Mrs. Kent. Andrew tunes it out until he can't and has to deal with Ashley when his mom won't, or face the consequences, leading to a segment of chasing Ashley. If you have younger siblings, you know the pain that this scene brings.
Please, just come inside. This shit is not a game.
We go upstairs after chasing her and causing a scene with a neighbor just for Ashley to immediately fold on Andrew. I've told not to, all because Andrew didn't stay after school.
May God grant death upon this creature, is what you thought.
The family rides in a borrowed car on their way to Mr. Graves' parents' house in the pursuit of money disguised as a family visit. The granddad immediately peeps out the bullshit and gets the question out of the way, leading to them having a fucking roast battle in front of his house.
Man, fuck you, you bitch.
Your mama.
Yo mama, yo bald-headed ass.
You mad.
I ain't mad, bitch. Look where you working at,
You
but
mad. Look where you eating.
In the house though, you can take the time to listen in on a conversation between Mr. Graves and his dad when you find out when Mrs. Graves had the siblings at a confirmed age of 15, which means hang on one second. Oh yeah, she's old. Adding to the reality that neither of these motherfuckers know how to parent whatsoever. Despite wanting to study, Andrew is voluntold to go outside. The woods are nice despite the hesitation, and it leads us to an abandoned house. However, before this, we can see in the bottom right corner of the screen a small patch of dirt. Using the trowel, we can dig up a time capsule to see a picture of Mr. and Mrs. Graves when they were younger. It's the first time we actually see them happy, and attached to the picture are 2 letters.
One of them reads, "Thank fuck from the bottom of my pitch black heart that I met you. I have never loved anyone like I love you. I didn't know that I could. You are the only one who can see who I really am. You are the only one who understands. I'm never returning your lighter, but you can have my heart, mind, and body. Also, tell your piece of shit dad to go fuck himself. He has no idea how narrowly spared he was. This bitch was edgy as fuck as a kid." The other letter reads, "I don't know what to write. I'm so bad at this stuff. I'm scared of what will happen, but if you want to keep the baby, I want to keep it too. Being with you makes me feel like I can do anything, even staying alive. It's a little funny how we went from planning a murder to planning a family in a matter of minutes. Curious things, those pregnancy tests. I love you, from Douglas."
Mr. and Mrs. Graves have no love for their children, but love each other passionately, even in death. Now, this letter initially flew over my head as just a little Easter egg, but with how Mrs. Graves mentions that Mr. Graves' father was spared and how he mentions they were planning a murder, the shit later on may reveal a big plot point. Also, his name is Douglas, by the way. That's the most cornball shit I've ever seen. Getting in the house, we see that this may have been the parents' old hangout spot, adorned with nice graffiti, trash, and the bed Andrew was probably conceived on.
On the ground sits an ashtray and a lighter, but no smokes. Where's the Newports, nigga?
Inspecting the room, we get a conversation when interacting with an ashtray, and like a badass kid, Ashley gets the idea to light one, just like in the movies that she always watched. The cosmic irony of Andrew talking about how cigarettes are bad to Leyley is funny in its own right, considering what he turns out to be later. The topic of marriage also comes up briefly, but for the one and only time in this game, I don't think it has crazy ass lore implications, but shooting a church apparently does.
Do I want you right now?
Getting back to the house, we are finally able to get back to studying after being told to go fuck off. As Andy gets to the room and is focused and locked in on studying, Ashley gets bored as she doesn't really know how to be with herself, hoping that Andrew comes up with the next adventure. And despite it only being 5 fucking seconds since they went upstairs and there's no TikTok for her to watch because it's like the 90s, she bothers Andrew about playing hide and seek. And despite his reluctance, he is basically volunteered to play hide and seek as she runs off.
"She'll be back when she figures you're not looking for her. Probably."
Despite the fact that he had no plans on looking for his sister, his own anxiety gets the best of him, causing him to look around the house and try not to alert his mother, and somehow bro gets away with this. Returning to the hideout and getting access downstairs despite how bad it looks, Andy goes down there. It's probably the bravest thing this motherfucker has ever done, because if I was his age, I'm letting her die down there. She got me fucked up. Well, Ashley isn't in the basement. However, we find something even darker. The remains of a summoning circle.
You feel something watching you.
Thinking that she's in the cupboard, Andrew makes a deal with her, but ends up walking out with a worse deal with something else like it's Pawn Stars. Andrew wakes up covered in the same flowers that we see in the realm between, but something about this scene always confused the fuck out of me ever since I played it. That's the correlation with the rest of the story. I mentioned earlier that the letters we found may have something to do with the scene later on, and the fact that there's an old summoning circle in the parents' possible old hideout. My theory is that when they were younger, the parents attempted to summon a demon. There's other evidence that might help with this, considering that Mr. Graves has a cut on his cheek in the picture we seen, possibly made to make a summoning circle. It was also at this point where I realized in the interaction with the Grime Soul and the demon that it basically confirms that the Grime Soul belongs to Andrew. Ashley then screams outside, and going to the balcony, she's just screaming about some damn spiders, and like a dumbass little sibling, she slips into the mud, causing her clothes to be fucked up. Knowing that they can't just walk through the front door without Andrew taking all the blame for what happened to her, we get her to wait outside while Andrew gets her clothes and avoids his mom. Everything is going smoothly until, who the fuck told you to turn on the And now Andrew has to be in the middle of all of this shit.
Grandfather turns the TV volume louder. There is nothing you can do but wait for the end.
The entire room falls silent as Andrew is interrogated for letting this happen to Ashley and not alerting anyone and trying to, in her eyes, sneak off. Even though Andrew would do anything to not disappoint his mother when it comes down to watching Ashley, despite everything, bro still gets in trouble. She starts crashing out in the middle of someone else's living room, and we learned earlier that this is just the norm for Mrs. Graves' behavior, but it's the first time we as the player experienced it firsthand. Even though we tried to micromanage everything that Ashley's done, because we're the only people that can at least pretend to care for her. The only person besides Andrew and Mrs. Graves who steps in is his grandmother, who tries to defuse the situation but can't even do that in her own house, leading to Andrew having to plant sprouts in the garden. And honestly, I was wondering what the fuck these holes are for too. Andrew walks away, looking at Ashley tug at her mother's shirt. We play Animal Crossing as Ashley comes outside, as if their mom didn't just put ass to belt. Despite obviously just wanting to be left alone, she adds onto her notion that it was his fault that everything just happened. And with that, she destroys all the progress that we just made. It's a literal example of how Ashley's wants gets in the way of things, and sometimes leads to the worst possible outcome for Andrew. You could literally take out the context of Andrew putting in new plants with how he tries to branch out with a new relationship. However, don't take this like my last video where it seemed like I was more on Andrew's side, because the shit he does is wild. Mrs. Graves coincidentally comes outside to tell them that dinner is ready, and sees that all the progress that Andrew has just made is now destroyed, and she takes it as Andrew never even tried. Andrew rightfully crashes out in the front yard, but still does what he was asked while repeating his desire of breaking off from Ashley in the form of school. You know damn well that's not gonna happen. He gets done just to be told by his grandmother that someone, most likely his mom, told her that Andrew wasn't eating tonight, and has to just go back upstairs just to walk up and see Andrew's notes scattered across the entire floor. The one thing that he was trying to accomplish is now ripped to shreds after Ashley has a fit because he wouldn't play with her. She gets to their parents' door way too quick just for their mom to come out. She then tells Ashley to go downstairs, not even bothering to talk to her. She sits down with Andrew, telling him how his behavior conflicts with the goal that she came here with, and threatens Andrew. We've all been there, honestly, Andrew. My mom did not play that shit, bro. This bitch, Mrs. Graves, tells an already broken down Andrew that he essentially needs to toughen up and thug that shit out, and the feeling that his entire life is just Ashley will never go away. Mrs. Graves' first sign of affection is shown to be a facade, to get Andrew to settle down and know that he will now be burdened with Ashley.
It's on you to keep her safe and sound.
You, not us. Leyley is Andy's problem and no one else's.
Won't you be a good brother to her?
And with enough force, he gives in.
He manipulated you again? What a manipulative, conniving dictator!
Mrs. Graves smiles and is then asked by Ashley to read a book, as she immediately tells Andrew to do. The pattern of Andrew leaning on Ashley and vice versa starts to grow here. Despite not liking his sister, he still asks her to be his friend. It's also here where the pattern of transactional love starts.
Passable, it reads on your test. You
The Andrew who, at the start of the chapter, wanted to move on, is now replaced with the one that only cares about the interest of his sister, placed onto him by his parents.
It's just the two of you now, or maybe it was always like that. Just you and the pile of shit that is your little sister. Andy and Leyley, and Andy.
Holy fuck, that was just the intro. The whole section just illustrates how deep the pipeline of the siblings' bullshit goes, and it does it pretty well. It's a long-ass emotional battle of being in love with each other, but then absolutely destroying their own sense of self. It's the decay of Andy and Leyley. I thought that shit sounded cooler in my head. We then see the two in modern day, shortly after killing both their parents.
It appears a bit of your parents remain under your fingernails.
They've been sleeping in the hitman's car in the parking lot of a gas station. In it, they get their normal stuff like tampons and the newspaper. However, the problem of not fully knowing how their parents were living good as fuck bothers Andrew, and I've never seen someone hate on their parents so hard. Niggas came up just to be hated on by their own kids. For real though, we know the Graves family was broke as hell from the previous flashbacks, so the question of how they were able to get good enough life insurance for their kids was strange to say the least. The two start to finish up in the gas station just as two police officers walk in, freaking Andrew out as Ashley is still washing her cooch in the hand dryer. Because I was in the wrong spot, Andrew gets cornered and we tell them that we ate a Popeye's chicken sandwich because we looked shady as hell. The possibility that they could have gotten caught right then and there causes Andrew to bust in the door. Walking out after almost getting caught and straight into the forest to avoid the cops, we navigate some puzzles and even find a wedding ring that's important later. But for now, we just have to keep moving. It's almost like the author is telling us something. The trail eventually leads to a view overlooking the gas station, and Ashley presses the issue of what comes next, leading to Andrew being a little bitch. He starts to shut down, realizing how much of a burden Ashley has been and how he lost the plot ever since the apartment. Andrew knows personally that he could put on a mask and show his normalcy, but Ashley will find a discrepancy in the case and ruin what they have going on. Andrew has always been a very anxious ass person, no shit, and as usual, Ashley tries to comfort him, but for the first time, he pushes her away. Obviously, most people would take that as a moment to be like, oh, I understand, but Ashley explodes. She always comforts him in every moment where he panics, but not this time.
No, I want to be with you. I want your mind, your body. I want to get close to you in any way, touch you, anywhere. I'm yours. All yours.
I'm done.
What?
I'm done. Go away. Go a million miles away.
Banging your head against the rocks would be more fruitful than this conversation.
She wants to help Andrew calm down, but he mentions that the only thing that might help would be to use the trinket for a vision, and goes as far as to offer to charge it like it's a fucking phone.
You're one tiny misstep away from getting your comeuppance for all your heinous deeds. Yet this fucking bitch won't cooperate with you for shit.
Her one demand is that Andrew indulge of her fantasy of Andy and all that it represents, but the name just means too much to him. A big shifting point was when they sacrificed their own parents in the previous episode. That's when the delusion of making something work for the two was out of the question for Andrew. He gets on her ass for fucking them harder than what was initially possible. In the last episode, Andrew was apprehensive of going anywhere near their parents, but because he's canonically a doormat, they went through with the plan and it spiraled into something it wasn't even supposed to be.
Soon you're back to where you were staying last, a camping site that allows for overnight parking.
The mood in the car is tense, and unlike any other time where they're at odds, Andrew doesn't apologize or bow down to Ashley, despite wanting the trinket. She wants Andrew to be made in a very specific way, and until he does, bro's not getting shit.
It's against your best interest to upset Ashley given your situation. But God, if it didn't feel good for all of 5 seconds, congratulations on sinking to her level. She then proceeds to give you the silent treatment. It's fucking amazing. I don't have to narrate this shit for a moment.
She falls asleep in his arms as he takes the trinket, waking up in the realm between. Andrew talks to the entity about a possible deal, but it doesn't seem to want to budge or have any interest in making one. We then have to navigate these wannabe ass weeping angels just to end up here. It's a strange sight to see as we wake up in a cage. Below is a grave that only says beloved, and honestly I wonder who it could be.
Something familiar rests on the bed.
Going to the bed in the middle, it ends up being Ashley's torso laying on the bed, and the puzzle is to find all her pieces. Before we find them though, we have to play that one section of Squid Games. Despite his insistence that this is a dream, Andrew puts his sister back together. Is that a fucking FNAF reference in my script, bro? He's then interrupted by an unknown being in the same color as Ashley, and it seems to want Andrew. Andrew wakes up to the two of them holding the trinket. Ashley, for the one time, has a good reasoning to be mad, as this is the second time she gets dextered in a dream. As she goes into detail of how, if you picked a certain choice in episode 2, instead of Ashley shooting Andrew in the head, you slit her throat. The future hasn't changed as Andrew kills her once again. She then grabs the cleaver and leaves us with the decision to stay firm with the decision of being Andrew, or to submit to Ashley in the most important section. Picking Andrew is choosing not to be a complete doormat. You play as an Andrew who literally cannot stand his sister, and instead of being more reminiscent of his childhood self, who had bent down to Ashley and let it be, causing him to be more discontent than ever. Not that he should ever be content though, this motherfucker sucks. After a long and drawn out argument, Andrew proceeds to smack the dog shit out of his sister. And it's in this moment where I personally kind of felt bad for Ashley for the one time. Despite the fact that they both say some pretty heinous shit to each other in all their arguments, this chapter is really making Andrew the abusive husband. She promises Andrew that she'll behave and shit like this will never happen again, but seeing the different endings and knowing how all of this started and how it ends, she's probably lying. She's probably lying, bro. Oh, and speaking of different endings, we gotta talk about that now, don't we? Oh, fuck. Now this video is going to be structured a little differently than my last coffin video, and that's because it's here where the playthrough and decisions made in the previous episodes come into play, and depending on decisions you made back then and what you canonically think of the characters, there are a few different endings for chapter 3, and this is the start of them. Choosing to let Andrew slit Ashley's throat at the end of episode 2 and choosing to be Andrew leads to, in my opinion, the canon route for episode 3. Its ending quite literally leads into episode 4, and despite that, it's not even the most interesting out of the 3 I found. Shit just gets worse, man. The chapter goes as is, but now we're dealing with a completely different type of relationship between the two, especially after Andrew puts his hands on his sister for the second time. Andrew starts to come to terms with not needing his sister, and Ashley dealing with the possibility of being alone, and even goes as far as to settle with not having the fantasy of being with Andy, a more submissive and caring version of her brother that loves her unconditionally in a very conditional relationship. Oh yeah, and there's also the option of choosing Andy if you want that. The other option of choosing Andy fits more in line with Andrew's mindset that he could just give in and accept what his sister wants him to be. Andrew gets out the car and calls Julia, and despite almost giving into his bullshit facade, she hangs up on him. The two eventually end up murdering 3 campers and a fucking child. Wait, what? Admittedly, the last one was optional, but I just had to get this achievement.
You killed a child. Amazing. Mission complete. That right there is why you're the best.
However, the kid was able to call the police before Andrew got to him, leading them to striking a deal to live in the entity's realm or get gunned down in one of the good endings. Sir, get down! Get down! While solving puzzles, the discussion of whether or not the two could live here, and while obviously they can't, the game acknowledges the worst part of this already bad fan base's desires. Also debate their relationship security, a huge topic of the entire decay route. The two have their moments of bickering, but Ashley for the first time realizes her shit is not gonna work on bro anymore. However, this is another point in the story where you can unlock 2 dead ends. Endings that genuinely see the conclusion of the two's story, and not even in a joking manner or a one-off joke. The first one is activated in a myriad of different decisions, but mainly when Andrew tells Ashley that he's Andrew and not Andy in the car. If you make the right decisions, instead of getting teleported to the realm between and doing puzzles and continuing on with the main route, we see Andrew angry at Ashley for burning and eating the bodies instead of just leaving them, as to not make it more suspicious or leave a crime scene. It was the one condition he had, but she couldn't follow through with it, and despite Andrew being more heated than he normally is, Ashley gives a clearly fake-ass apology and tells him that it'll never happen again. However, We both know that this will never happen, and she doesn't truly mean it because she'll do whatever the fuck she wants at the end of the day. At the end of it, Andrew calls her out on it, and instead of moving on past it like she might want, Andrew fully breaks, and it's not like normal where she can talk her way out of it and heal his wounds is normal, but rather Andrew realizing his identity is slowly dying off in the pursuit of Ashley and her wants. And with that, he runs off to kill his sister as she begs throughout the entire time, as Andrew does every desperate attempt to get closer and draw her in, and surprisingly it almost works. We finally catch up to her and finish the job, the silence filling up the scene. Ashley is now genuinely dead at the hands of her brother, as it was prophesied to happen in episode 2. The entity immediately goes up behind Andrew and seems to somewhat be willing to work with him so they both can benefit from this relationship now that Ashley is fully gone. But there's no point.
The entity can tell there is no negotiating with you. You're all alone now. She's dead, and the carcass of your sister says nothing.
Andrew plays with his sister's body and wants to believe that at some point his ideal version of his sister existed just as Andy existed to Ashley, but it was never the case. He's a romanticist that found the idea of being with his sister even in death appalling, until it's convenient or it was under certain conditions. As I said earlier, it's a very conditional relationship, and I like this moment because it's one of the few times where Andrew actually lets out his true feelings to a dead version of his sister. Bro was never joking about fucking, actually. It's either that or this game is extremely edgy, and I'm pretty sure it's just a little bit of both. Like, look at this dialogue. The second ending is a more extended ending than we've seen before with all the alternative endings that you can get. Labeled the deadest of ends, it's a more extended ending comparatively to the brevity of Andrew wins. Instead of Ashley getting caught and murdered, we can purposely lose to tag, which then causes Ashley to pull out a gun at Andrew, but realizes that she can't murk her brother. And shortly after that, the entity shows up only to kill Andrew. Ashley is then forced to come to terms with the fact that she might never see her brother, who absolutely hates every fiber of her being. The next scene is Ashley admitting to her mother when she was a kid that she and Andrew straight up killed Nina. But because of Mrs. Graves' negligence towards her kids, it gets swept under the rug and treated as if nothing is wrong and she's lying. In the vision room, we can see a vision of Mrs. Graves coming to the realization that her children actually did it. And it's something that's been talked about ever since episode 2, when we found out that she actually knew but didn't tell anyone. Andrew eventually shows up, and for the first time, surprisingly, Ashley realizes that something is truly wrong with her deep down inside. But it wasn't handled in an appropriate manner for the one time. She had remorse for what she did and notes to Andrew that she is fucked up beneath it all. The scene takes place sometime after the blood oath and sometime obviously after Nina's death. It goes to show how conditional the relationship was, and even at points one-sided. If it wasn't for the oath, Andrew probably wouldn't have forced himself to like his sister, and the scene ends beautifully as Ashley wakes up after bawling her eyes out next to the corpse of her brother. Despite this, the entity still brings Andrew back to life, just for Andrew to escape. And after this, he's now banned from the entity's realm, and with that, Ashley chained him to a radiator in an unknown apartment. The apartment seems to belong to a cult member that failed at summoning the entity, and it's now home to Andrew while Ashley goes and collects souls for the entity. There's a lot to digest when it comes down to this route, and that's why I took the time to take a break from talking about the cliffhanger route, or in other words, the canon decay route for this. It's essentially like a bottle episode where Ashley and Andrew realize they are not good for each other and never were. Holy shit, they're not pulling any punches with this fucking episode. Eventually, we can coerce Julia into coming to our apartment by playing the nice boyfriend act, and she brings us bolt cutters. After being set free because of Julia, he has the goddamn nerve to bring up trying to even start the relationship over again, even having an internal dialogue about putting on another facade, just to show how desperate he is and how he has no one else. In the main path, we can see that Julia was used as a buffer for Andrew's attempt at normalcy, and throughout all high school years, Julia and Andrew had to sneak around as to not upset Ashley. Admittedly, it's a good scene because Julia is no longer a victim and can stand against her abuser, sister, a guy who used her as a poor fucking attempt to get away from something worse, a guy who's capable of doing bad things but doesn't want to come to terms with it. She gives Andrew a letter and we never see her again. The letter itself is a painfully real-ass letter from Julia that goes into detail about her true feelings. It took a long time for her to realize that she was scared of Andrew. We even see prime examples of Andrew being a total piece of shit and getting angry at Julia whenever she tried to defend herself or oppose Andrew's clear obsession with appeasing his sister. There was a point when she was once over the moon about this dude, replaced with a complete hatred. It's shit like this that I can't bring myself to hate the game for, because yes, there's cannibalism and all this other weird shit and all the base level things about the game, but then you have very real moments of writing that actually sealed the deal for me and for any fan of this game.
Either way, our paths have diverged, and they will never cross again. If you're dead, I hope you're in heaven with Nina. If you're alive, I hope you rot in hell with Ashley.
Absolute fucking cinema. To seal the entire encounter, an old friend of Andrew has a chance encounter with him, and he's the complete opposite of Andrew, leading a normal and happy life, and at any point he could have asked for help to get out of the situation and finally leave Ashley for good because he has a plan, but he doesn't act upon it and just fucking throws up like a goddamn loser and just goes back to Ashley bitching and moaning on how he got out. There's a scene where they eventually start making out and it's obviously uncomfortable as fuck. There's no justification for this. It's literally just the nastiest shit ever.
Bet your parents would be real proud right now. You nasty incestuous fucks. Why did I force myself to narrate for this shitty ass channel?
There's no defending this part of it. It's obviously uncomfortable as shit. And Ashley is trying to appease Andrew because she sees that deep down it's something that he might have wanted, but both parties end up going their separate ways.
Never have you gone so soft so fast.
The rest of the episode is Andrew in a drunken state going into detail about how much he hates his sister and Ashley doing everything to try and appease him. Among other things like the subplot of cutting up the man who owns this apartment's body and taking his identity. But none of that really matters after Ashley comes back and finds a used pad where Julia was, sparking an argument, and despite doing everything not to argue about it as nothing truly happened, it only keeps escalating despite Andrew's pleas of not arguing. He admits that there's nothing left for him to give, no attention or loyalty to fix it, except for one thing, and that's Julia's head on a plate, and knowing this game, that's probably genuinely what she wants him to do.
Be a cute little sister. I know you want to. Tell them to solve all your problems.
But this time, he just says no. He's officially done and bro is woken up, looking like Chris Breezy as the game gives us the futile option to disengage. But it's too late as Andrew beats his sister, as she apologizes and you can hear everything that happened. He admits that he's young and that if he just kills her here and now, he still has 60 years to reintegrate and put his mask of normalcy back on, where he will never truly connect with anyone but chooses it. It's a terrifyingly realistic scene to see Ashley battered and bruised after being assaulted and admitting that she is the problem and apologizing just to not be hit again. Glass is all over the kitchen and there's scars all over her body as she's laid out, and Andrew asks what worth she can provide and why he shouldn't end her now, just for her to say that she can bake cookies as the last ditch effort to seemingly stay alive and be with Andrew. He walks away as Ashley tells her she loves him, just to be thrown to the wayside by Andrew, who regrets everything that he's just done. Andrew wakes up drunk on the floor as Ashley lays next to him and questions whether or not he loves her or it's the Don Julio talk. This is another uncomfortable moment, and I just want to give a warning to anybody listening to this shit because it gets pretty fucking crazy. It's a moment where Ashley tries to solidify her place in Andrew's mind and life and not get murked by offering to indulge in a secret desire of sex. It's clear that she doesn't want to, and Andrew wants to avoid doing it. It's a mad, uncomfortable scene that parallels with the very start of the game, where Ashley's desires and wants cause something horrible to happen, and in this case, it's the most uncomfortable scene I've ever had to witness, where the two have sex despite neither of them truly wanting it. The screen then goes dark as all the events unfold, and you're forced to just sit there and watch it play out. There's multiple pieces of dialogue that show Ashley making Andrew drink. With a lot of alcohol and coercion, Andrew does it. It's a different level of disgust, I ain't gonna lie to you, bro. And while I wanted to start dedicating my channel to finding weird, strange shit on Steam, I had to take a step back because what the fuck, man? I'm sure most of the fan base for this game unironically joke about the incest, but I think this scene was added to display that none of this shit should be psych. It's a disgusting reminder of what this game represents. It ends with them still going at it as Ashley says, "I love you," showing that she'll do anything to truly appease him, and Andrew wishes he truly could love her.
Today you wake up with your head and your heart heavy as lead, and your soul is as burned as charcoal, but that's neither here nor there. There's a disgusting lump sleeping next to you. It doesn't care for you. It only cares for itself, and it always gets what it wants in the end.
Andrew thinks about everything that happened, and while disgustingly, he mentions that the moment shouldn't have been wasted and should have been special, and it's just the lowest he's ever been as he still has to deal with his sister. The anger over the events of last night build up so much to the point where they get into a fight where Andrew holds a gun to his sister's head, fully and utterly done with everything, and gives her an ultimatum of just going away, knowing that she can't live. He then says, "Unlike you, I would never make you do something you didn't want to," showing his absolute hypocrisy. He wishes that he could hate her, but at least he can fulfill one true desire with Ashley by jumping off of the balcony, a line from episode 1 that didn't seem to have much meaning but does now. The two stand over the window. Andrew is completely ready to jump and get it over with, but Ashley doesn't. She wants to be with him for eternity. She had the opportunity to leave and be spared of dying with her favorite person in the world, but chose not to. The two then jump out of the window in front of a group of kids, and in the art you can see that while Andrew is completely content with what happens to him, Ashley holds on to him, knowing that this wasn't the ending she wanted. There was no other way to be with Andrew. Fuck, that was heavy. That was some heavy shit. I feel like I don't want to cover the cliffhanger. And picking where we left off talking about the cliffhanger route, a lot of world building outside of the siblings' relationship happens that isn't really relevant right now, except for the difference between the deadest of ends and the cliffhanger ending. Instead of one of the siblings killing each other, they just continue on with the relationship, knowing that they genuinely cannot be in the same room for like more than 5 minutes. The entity doesn't make this any better as he forces Andrew to stay as Ashley and It go off collecting souls, leaving Andrew by himself. He even shows her a vision of Andrew burning the trinket, further creating a divide between the two. Ashley goes back to the room and sees that he's trying to make sense of this realm, and notes that we can see, and a letter that seems to fly over Ashley's head that details where Andrew is mentally, just for the two to get into an argument about past relationships, and Ashley getting her way, just for Bo to get smacked and thrown out the room. The entity then comes to Andrew, telling him that he has a deal that's been unfulfilled, and we travel through a slightly different version of the summoning circle that we've seen in the Dead End route. But this time, we summon something terrifying, and we go to one of the best segments of this route that goes deep into Andrew's psychology, and it's definitely the highlight of this entire chapter. The first door analyzes who Andrew is, and at least who he used to be.
Looks like someone died here.
The second room discusses the relationships he's had in his life, split up between Ashley, Julia, and Nina. For Nina, we know Andrew was on bullshit, like bro. And he never even had a chance to because he murdered her. But the real interesting one to me is what he says about Julia and Ashley.
Oh, bittersweet first love. She was so gentle, so kind, patient, and so precious. And she bored the shit out of you. But hey, the sex was fine, though you did fantasize about kicking her teeth in so she'd give better head. It's a good thing she broke it off with you.
This nigga sucks, bro. Picking up the object that represents Ashley distorts everything, which I just find funny because you can see that Andrew knows how cooked he is. It's Ashley. The third door analyzes his upbringing with an ominous hallway, the features of a crude drawing of his mother, and ends with a flashback of Andy taking care of his sister. And in the current time, he notes that he doesn't know where the dependency factor may have started. I wonder if this moment was where it started. Was it when they killed Nina? Did he fuck her up way before that? He looks back on this. The demon now recalls who he is as the grime soul he saw at the beginning of the game, and sees Andrew's deceptive nature as an invite to dig deeper into who he is. Fuck, you digging in me. The next scene goes over the siblings' relationship in school and the perception of the people around them, in a scene where Ashley gets on his lap, completely throwing off the two friends that he has, because why the fuck are you this close? While trying to help Ashley get some girls away from a vending machine she was trying to go to, but forgets his notes. In the class, he hears the guys talking about how close Ashley was getting to Andrew, and how he didn't even fucking bother. What seemed like a normal interaction between the two is turned into something that's way crazier. Andrew is such a fucking loser in this scene. He doesn't even try and stand up for himself because he knows deep down he is cooked, bro.
Well, go on, champ. Go tell him off. Go tell him off if he's so wrong.
Next day, Ashley goes on their first date, and at first he doesn't think much of it, but his son passes him of what would happen if this guy actually pulls it off, gets to him. While Ashley's obsession is very present and obvious, Andrew's is more subtle. Thankfully for Andrew, he comes back because of the pressure of life. Deep down, Rose just celebrating their own once his sister, just so he can crazy shit. He journeys into another memory of when they were in high school. He has to deal with the fallout of Ashley standing up her dick, which was the same guy talking shit about how close they were because bro knew it was the easiest alley-oop of all time. There's now a rumor at the school that Andrew and Ashley had sex, as Andrew is completely oblivious as to why everyone is ducking him. I think this scene is funny because this is quite literally what happens when I told people that I play this game. If you want to see how much tolerance someone has for you, tell them that you play this game. Fronts the guy, but he deflects, knowing anything about starting the rumor. There's an interesting part where Julia and Andrew first meet, and it's clear that she has somewhat of an interest in him, bringing up the rumors that he's been deflecting all day, just to let him know that he has her support. Andrew, throughout the entire conversation, seems irritated and doesn't want much to do with Julia, seeing that she's just a nerdy-ass girl. His apprehensiveness from Julia might be coming from the fact that she's one of Ashley's few quote-unquote friends. So to just see this random ass girl come up to you, and bro's already irritated. Andrew tried to use Julia and Nina to dump off Ashley so that he wouldn't be bothered with her, and now she's being used again in the current time to deflect any rumors about Ashley and Andrew having sex. A puzzle section then plays representing their relationship, with Ashley's eyes all around, and we had to navigate around them to get a yellow plushie representing Julia. For the longest time, the two had to sneak off and pretend that they weren't in a relationship just so that Ashley wouldn't get mad. But luckily for Andrew, because he was dating Julia, it took off all the heat from the rumors that he had sex with her. For all that Julia knows, they're together, but never official due to the fear of how Ashley would react. Andrew puts it off for the longest time, love bombing the shit out of Julia just to make her forget, completely dropping any discussion of fully being together. Andrew's the type of dude to contribute nothing to the relationship but dick.
I told you, you cannot be smoking at my apartment. You gonna get me kicked out. This is the second time. I'm sure the fee not that high. You want something to drink?
After some pressure from Julia, Andrew is then forced to tell Ashley that they've been together, which leads her into a fucking spiral. She destroys their room and everything. She loses it like they were actually eventually going to get married. They do their same dance and spiel, but eventually Andrew still gives into Ashley's dependency on him, while still trying to juggle being with Julia. He goes to sleep and has a dream that plays out, that represents the decay of any semblance of a relationship with Julia, as flowers representing Ashley grow and eventually take over the scene. At the top of the dream sequence, we can see the grave of Nina, Julia's childhood friend, which is pretty much a transition into the next flashback sequence, where Julia tells Andrew that it's the anniversary of Nina's death. Andrew immediately feeling the guilt of being at the grave of the girl that he killed all those years ago, but he knows deep down that he has no right to be sitting here with her best friend and supposedly dating her.
Pull yourself the fuck together.
Andrew's mask is starting to slip, but before it fully does, Julia needs a moment.
Can you at least pretend not to be a piece of crap for 1 minute? You're supposed to be good at that.
We get the flowers for the grave, but as the scene goes on, Andrew starts to slowly lose it, and is reminded of the grave that he put Nina into for the sake of Ash. He then starts saying some bullshit about the fragility of life, or some other meaningless shit that goes over Julia's head, despite what she says.
What the hell are you talking about?
It's a crazy ass scene when you realize that Andrew's talking to the best friend of the girl he murdered when he was a kid, and in some weird way I think he believes that he's comforting her to not feel as guilty as he does, and that's where Ashley comes in to heal Andrew's wounds, telling her all about the visit.
You tell her about visiting Nina's grave, though you fail to mention anything about declaring your love for Julia. You goddamn simp.
This codependency is the only way that Andrew could truly live with himself. They lay in the bed after having a conversation, and it's here where you can see the deeper feelings manifest on both sides. Thoughts of marriage and running away are now apparent. It's not exactly the end-all be-all, but it's something that is brought up. The two then go to sleep in their arms, Andrew now feeling less guilty because of Ashley's enabling, and knowing that he feels absolutely no love towards Julia, and Ashley content because she now has her Andy. In the extra content section called the Vision Room, we can see a vision from the perspective of Mrs. Graves searching the siblings' room after getting the feeling that they might be a little bit more close than what she might want. She looks into the room for different things like condoms, but finds nothing. And I think mentioning that scene lines up completely with what we see here. To complement the realization Andrew faces of not actually caring or love, there's another dream sequence. Holy fucking shit, I've said that like 8 times already. Where Julia knocks on his apartment door and the two kiss, just for it to instead be Ashley. Any normal, rational person would immediately feel disgusted and probably wake up. But this nigga kisses her hard.
Okay, so I'm actually going to end the video right here.
I have to sit with myself for a second after that, my fault. He wakes up as Ashley tells him he was calling her name in his sleep. Because Andrew has the hidden desire to be with his sister, which is weird as fuck, he pushes those thoughts away as he still wants to cling on to normalcy, like he has any semblance of it even now, and pushes her away, knowing that that would cross a boundary that doesn't really want to. The relationship is forever affected by this, pushing her advances away. We see that because he pushed her affection to the side for the sake of being with Julia. In the sense of being normal, all he can think about is what he did wrong with her, even when he's not with her, then leads to holding off any future with Julia. There's no moving in together or actually becoming an official couple, and this is exactly what she mentioned in the Deadest of Ends room. Through more puzzles, we can see the symbolism of Julia's mouth being taped and condoms sitting on a pillow, and this could be interpreted as, okay, I really had some thought-provoking reason right here, but it's genuinely as simple as bro wanted to fuck and nothing else. However, a more interesting point is seeing how the game literally shows us how much of a piece of shit Andrew is, as we can see that he would peek through the keyholes to see Ashley showering or getting dressed, showing that he really wants her in a manner that is not very sibling. I'm not censoring myself because of YouTube. Totally. There's another scene that goes forward in the timeline that just shows how fucking long the pattern of not even thinking about anything Julia has to say, and only thinking about what Ashley was doing at that present time, even while the two were together. Also, I want to just show my live reaction to what I was reading and the bullshit that Andrew was spewing. It's like on second playthrough, I'm starting to realize like how fucked up it really is. Like that Andrew was just like, oh yeah, in the future, haha, we'll get a house together. Then she mentions it like a year fucking later. We don't know, obviously, but she mentions it like a fucking year later, and this nigga's still like, yeah, but the future's expensive, so no. This nigga's an ass. We now see an Andrew who's completely tired of leading the lives of two different people come back to the apartment and find that Ashley is now taking a job of one of those massage parlors with the happy endings in the back. What's crazy is while I was recording this video, I found this weird rabbit hole on TikTok where this guy literally just goes to massage parlors and records it. And now I can imagine Ashley doing the exact same thing, but fucking sacrificing them to her demon Baphomet to see if Andrew's gonna pick her nose or fucking kill her in her sleep. I don't know. That line's funny. Mrs. Graves earlier told Andrew to try not to convince her out of it and just take the job. And despite that, he does it anyways because deep down he knows he can't have Ashley essentially whoring herself out. It's a very older brother sentiment that can also paint the picture that Andrew wants Ashley to himself. Bro's crushing pencils and having dreams about kissing his sister, so I don't think it's out the realm of possibilities. Through a very stupid method, he's able to reverse any and all ideas of Ashley getting a job planted by her mom, and not just the massage parlor. The two make up after a long wall of distance just for Ashley to go back into a state of relying and manipulating Andrew, which is crazy because she's known to call Julia and harass her. And I'd like to think that Ashley is so fucked up as to call her on the same text now number she uses to cuss her out.
Message lasts 2 minutes. This is for Rachel, you big fat white nasty smelling fat bitch.
She tells him to get home for whatever reason she has and threatens him by saying maybe I'll start cutting myself like the pig you're porking. What the fuck? Before Andrew eventually leaves, Julia gives him an ultimatum, choosing between his sister and herself, as the uncertainty of whether or not he wants to be with her officially is killing all her energy in hopes of being with this weak-ass piece of shit she calls a boyfriend. He tells Julia that maybe Ashley can eventually come around. She does not come around. We then see Andrew's inner thoughts. That is just Andrew saying to himself that he'll be normal and won't have a relationship with his sister. He'll learn to actually like Julia and go to college, knowing that he can't escape his fate. There's no way out of this. And that fate is being stuck in the apartment after being told he has to be quarantined with the person he was trying so hard to detach from. Despite how I feel about the story at points, finding out that all this shit that I've just seen ties into the events of episode 1 in a pretty nice consistent package was actually pretty good writing. The last door in the Hall of Visions represents the lives taken in the pursuit of staying alive and with Ashley. Whether it be cultists or a security guard from the apartment, Nina or the campers and their kid. The game directly asking if all of this was worth it.
Looking at all the corpses and sacrifices here, you've built quite the streak. What do you have to say for yourself? The neighbor cultist doesn't count. You didn't know he was still alive when you chopped him up. Nina, that was an accident. The warden and the neighbor lady. Survival. Same with the hitman. But sacrificing your own mother and father? Come on now. Ashley might have dragged you along, but along you went. All on your own.
I'd like to think Kit 9 got tired of people mischaracterizing Andrew as a victim, which I feel is something I fell into when initially playing the game and making my first video on it, and they just ended up making this scene. The final scene of the episode is a very gory scene to say the least, with the body parts of your parents strung around in a pool of blood, while Leyley, the younger version of Ashley, sits in a corner fucking watching orange versus blue screen. Andrew kicks his mother's head and proceeds to remark his feelings of being told it's wrong to want his sister, despite having her dumped onto Andrew's lap. He also remarks that he wanted to cry while he was cutting up his parents at the end of episode 2, not because he had remorse, but rather there was no longer a good son persona he could hold up. Andrew's whole character is putting up fronts to make situations work in his favor. And that's a big ass theme of the sentiment is eventually given an example as Andrew tells Leyley that dinner, aka her dead parents, are prepared to be eaten. This looks like the name of a fucking sewer slut song, bro. However, when she doesn't eat the food, or for symbolism's sake, doesn't appreciate the effort of sacrificing their parents to a literal fucking demon, and with little hesitation on Andrew's part, he cuts his little sister up into many pieces. What the fuck, man? I literally just played this game like 2 years ago because I saw one tweet about it. Fuck.
Well, go on. Don't stop there.
The entire scene becomes distorted with blood in the huge portrait, turning into a scratched out picture of Andrew, showing that this version of him is long dead. He's now gained an ally in the form of an entity that's taken a liking to him ever since he was a kid. Despite the actions that he's made, he tells a demon that he wants to hurt Ashley, but also keep her safe, which lines up with a line that he says in The Deadest of Ends. He's tried to make something work between them, but it never works, leading them down this rabbit hole of demons, repressed incest, and cannibalism. If shit didn't start off so horribly, maybe things could have panned out in a more conventional way, and Andrew's sense of who he is wouldn't have been so fucked up. As he's ranting to the demon, one of its hands reaches out and it's willing to help.
Suddenly you understand why people join cults.
Andrew has some words with Ashley and jumps into a portal as he and the Lord Unknown start their new relationship of helping each other as episode 3 part 1 ends. So I told you guys in my last video about this game that I would keep up with this game as much as humanly possible, and despite the fact that I haven't uploaded anything besides my mouthwashing video in the span of a year, I still made through with my promise. All I can really hope now is that this video gets as much attention, or even the exact same amount of attention, first Coffin of Andy and Leyley video. I think the chapter has some very strong moments, and it's overall just a lot more chaotic than the first 2 chapters that I covered in my original. Also, I might be thinking about just doing an entire compilation of both this video and my first video on it, just so that it's a little easier for people to. I know I didn't go too in depth into what happened in the first 2 episodes, but that's just mostly for brevity. And honestly, if you're watching this fucking video, go ahead. The game's cheap, bro. The game's like $12. The message of ending a cycle of codependency is still very strong and very much more crazier than it came before. Moral of the story is, kill your siblings if they make you mad when you were 6 years old.
I hate this channel. No!